Hey everybody, welcome to the Roy Family Homestead. And I know Miss Penny's usually the one that does the baking and making the jams and all that good stuff. But today I'm going to make a basic white sandwich bread. It's supposed to be fluffy and pillowy soft and all that. We have made the artisan bread and the Amish sweet bread in the past, and it's really good, don't get me wrong, but it's kind of got its place. This is more like your sandwich bread. So we'll start out with the ingredients here. Let me get my age out here. All right, so we're starting out. We've got 2 tablespoons of honey, and guys, this is our honey from our beehives, so we get to use that. We've got 1.5 teaspoons of salt. We've got 4 tablespoons of butter. We've got now this is 3.5 teaspoons of active dry yeast. Now you can use the instant yeast, but we're using the active dry yeast, so I had to proof it. Okay, and some warm water under 110 degrees. We've got, this is supposed to be, if you use the instant yeast, you use 1 1/4 cup of milk. But since I used 1/4 cup of warm water to activate this yeast, I dropped this down by 1/4 cup down to just 1 cup. And we use all-purpose flour instead of the bread flour, so this is 3 cups of bread flour. So basically all we're going to do, we're going to start out with the bowl here. We're going to put the 3 cups of flour in here. We're going to add the salt. We're going to give that just a little mix a little bit, just kind of incorporate the salt and the flour together. All right, I'm going to make me like a little spot here in the middle. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the honey, the butter, and the milk and just mix it all together before I pour that in there. Kind of get that all mixed up. And I'm going to add my yeast. Now all this has been warmed to about 100 degrees body temperature, somewhere in there. So we're going to just get all this mixed together, get all that good yeast down in there. All right. Okay, and then we're just going to pour this in there, and we're going to mix this to a rough dough ball. We're not trying to get it smooth right now or anything like that. We're just trying to get it mixed in what they call a rough dough ball. Give it all a good mix. Guys, when I was a kid growing up, my mom used to make homemade bread. And we would sit around the table, me and my dad and my little brother, and just wait with bated breath for that first loaf to come out of the oven. And my mother, she would set out the butter and grape jelly, and we would, as soon as that loaf would come out, I mean, it'd barely even make it out of the pan, and we'd start eating it. And between the 3 of us guys, we would eat almost the entire loaf. I think my mom would get a piece of it, but you know. Now this, because it's all-purpose flour, I don't know how well y'all can see this dough. This is way too runny. Okay, so what I'm going to do, and they say it just, if you use all-purpose flour, not all-purpose dough, but if you use all-purpose flour, the liquid that you use is a little bit different. So let me grab some more flour here. And I'm going to add just a little at a time until I get that dough-like consistency. So we're going to put just maybe a little bit in there. See what happens here. There we go. Now we're starting to get that ball forming. And once I get all this stirred up, basically what we're going to do is we're going to let this rest for about 10 to 15 minutes. It's not necessary, but it does help in the kneading process. And oh yeah, that's a lot better now. Yeah, we're good. I think we're okay right there. Now this is still going to be a real sticky dough. This is not a real stiff, hard dough. I think I'm going to add maybe just a touch more flour. This is still a little thin. I think I may have added just a little more water in there in that proofing part that might have messed us up a little bit, but I think we're going to be okay. Yeah, there we go. Now, see, I don't know if y'all can see this. Now it's starting to really make a ball. See how it's doing? It's actually balling up for me here now. So that's awesome. That's what we want. There we go. Now that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I'm happy with that. All right, so basically, let's go ahead now and we're going to cover this with a cloth for about 10 or 15 minutes, then we'll come back and we'll start the kneading process. All right, everybody, it's been about 15 minutes or so. We've let this dough rest. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to, now from what I've seen, a lot of new bread makers, the big mistake they make is using too much flour when they're kneading. It makes for a heavier loaf. We want this light and fluffy, so I'm only gonna put just enough flour for the first few kneads, and then after that, if it sticks, I'm gonna use my handy dandy scraper here and I'm gonna scrape it off the thing and keep kneading it. It will eventually, you know, not be sticky and start to get that smooth texture that you're looking for, when you're making a good fluffy bread. So here we go. As you see, I'm using just very little flour here. And guys, that's probably all I'm going to use. So let's get this scraped out here. You want to scrape this clean, get every bit of this good dough out of here. And then I'll wash this bowl, and this is what we'll put back in it. Put it back in to rise. Oh yeah, it's coming out there very nicely. Alrighty. We'll get that washed up. All right. And this dough is kind of, like I said, it is kind of sticky, so just want to kind of roll it and get it started. Just enough flour in there. And then we'll start kneading. All right. You see what I'm doing here basically is I'm doing a quarter turn, pulling this back over and pushing with the palm of my hand, or with the back of my hand, like that, turn. And see, it's not even hardly sticking. I mean, it's sticking a little bit, but well, y'all, this is my first time making bread, so but I just want this to turn out all nice and fluffy. I'll probably edit out a whole lot of this. All right, guys, I'm going to work on this a little bit more, about 15 minutes worth of kneading until this dough becomes real nice and soft, and we'll be back in just a minute. All right, guys, I've kneaded that. Took about 20 minutes to get it nice and smooth and everything. I'm I've got some melted butter in here. I like to use the same kind of oil that I use in the bread for the outside. So basically we're going to take this and we're going to lay it in here. We're going to move it around, get it nicely coated with butter. Like so. And then we're going to cover this with we got a slightly warm kitchen towel. We're going to cover that, set that over here. We're not going to touch it until it doubles in size, basically. Once it doubles in size, we'll be back and show you how to prepare it to get it put in the pans. All right, everybody, our dough has already risen. It's doubled in size, and I've already punched it down, they call it. And I'm going to bring this out here. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this dough and you're going to roll it out in a rectangle, or press it out into a rectangle, making sure all the air bubbles are out of it. And you're going to do it as wide as your bread pan and about 3 times as long, okay? So let's get this all pressed out here. Got a little bit more on the ends than I do in the middle here. All right, so that looks about right, because it'll stretch out as you go. Now what you want to do is you want to grab the end, and you want to stretch it out, tuck it over, and then pinch the ends in. You want to stretch it out, roll it, and you want to keep doing that until this bread is completely rolled up. And what you're doing is you're creating a nice tight skin around the, on the outside. There we go. Oh yeah, it's looking nice. Just stretch and pinch. And again, like I said, what you're doing is you're going to make a real nice loaf of bread. Here we go. Okay, now we're going to tuck the ends in. Make sure that's pressed down real good. And guys, there it is. So we're going to put this in a greased bread pan. I'll tuck these ends down. All right. And there you go. And what we're going to do is we're going to let this set. We're going to cover it with a damp towel, and we're going to let it set until it rises about 1 inch above the bread pan. Once it rises, then we'll get it in the stove. We'll be back. All right, everybody, as you can see, it has risen well over 1 inch in the bread tin or bread pan. And I switched over to the cellophane or saran wrap because I was worried that cloth was going to stick to the top, mess the top up. I just lightly sprayed this with some cooking spray and draped it over the top. It's risen beautifully. We've got the oven preheated to 350 degrees, and we're going to bake this for the other breads we baked. We see that our oven, about 30 minutes is perfect, or you want the internal temperature of this bread to be 190 degrees. This is enriched bread, so you want to make sure that it's done all the way through, and that internal temperature is 190. So we're going to pop her in the oven, and we'll be back in about 30 minutes to show you the end result. All right, everybody, we have took the bread out, and as you can see, oh my God, it's huge. I think the recipe may have called for a larger bread pan, but it turned out great. We used a thermometer, checked the internal temperature. It is 190 degrees, so the bread is done all the way through. You can also thump it, and it sounds almost hollow, so that lets you know that it's done. So what I'm going to do before I take it out, we're going to, little melted butter. We're going to brush some melted butter on it. What that's going to do, that's going to soften the crust, keep the crust all nice and soft. The girls like a softer crust. They don't like a hard crust. And depends on what you're eating. whether a hard crust or soft crust goes with whatever you're having. So, like I said, we're going to coat this real good with some butter. Gives it a good, nice shine too. Makes it look real pretty. But anyway, this is a huge loaf of bread. There is no way this is going to fit in my DIY bread slicer that I built, but it'll be all right. Next time I'll know to either cut the recipe down or we need to get us a bigger bread pan. And it smells wonderful. All right, so let's see if we can get this out on the cooling rack here. Now I used butter to coat the pan with, so let's see. Oh yeah, she's gonna come right out of there. Wonderful, wonderful. Oh my goodness, man, it smells good. So guys, there it is. There's my my huge loaf of bread. It's the first time I've made bread, so like I said, I mean it's gorgeous. I mean, look at it. I mean it's beautiful, but it is a little big. It's gonna make some huge sandwiches. All right, so we're gonna let this cool before we slice it. We'll be back as soon as it does cool down and cut it open so we can taste it. All right, everybody, the bread has cooled. Well, it's cooled enough. I can't wait to try it. The smell in the house is just, it's awesome. But so anyway, I did a video on this. This is a bread, a little DIY bread slicer. Unfortunately, this bread rose so high, and like I said before, I think it called for a bigger loaf pan than what I put it in, and that's why it's huge. So this is not going to work. So anyway, we're just going to slice it the old-fashioned way. Hopefully I can get some pretty straight slices. So here we go. Oh yeah. So it's going to be hard to get that real thin slice without a slicer, but all right. Everybody want to try it?
Sure.
Yeah? Okay. Let me get some paper towels here. Put a piece there. And it is a little warm, so it is a little bit harder to slice. I think once it cools down, it'll slice a little easier. And I'm just going to cut this in half for everybody because it's a big old piece of bread. But look at that. It's pretty, and it smells really good. So. All right, everybody get you a piece and we'll just try it. We're just going to try the plain bread, not put anything on it so we can get a full taste of the bread. So, everybody get together. And just take a bite.
I might just break it.
That's really good.
That's really good. Yeah.
It tastes just like, it tastes better than store-bought white bread, but it's chewy.
It's like a piece of bread.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Wow.
Very
Well, like
good.
I said, the Amish sweet bread, it's good, but it's too sweet for us for like a sandwich. The artisan bread, also very good, but again, not a good sandwich bread. And with the girls and us, eating sandwiches and nothing else, PB&J or whatever, this is going to be perfect for that. We're going to have to practice on getting the loaves a little smaller, But other than that, guys, this is a great recipe. Well, look, thank you all so much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Again, like I said, we're trying to get monetized and all that good stuff. And as always, y'all have a great day.